Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Brilliant Ones podcast. I got a special guest with me, Roderick Hearn, founder and CEO of Ironrod Steel. Roderick, welcome.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you, Donnie.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. It's the first time I've done a podcast, man. I'm excited.
Yeah. No, I'm super excited to have you on the show. You have such a great story to tell, right? And when I was researching you, I was just impressed about all that you overcame and how you were able to build your company to the levels at. And that's why I wanted to reach out, because man, just to see a Black entrepreneur, right? And especially in this economy, overcome the things and challenges that you've been through and be able to kind of push to and persevere, man, it takes a lot of strength. And that takes a lot of I would say a lot of mental toughness.
Yeah, definitely. First of all, I'm a real big believer in God. I'm a Christian. So everything about me, man, that I've accomplished, I give glory to who I feel in my heart it goes to, So I give all glory to God. And at the same time, man, I've had a lot of great people stand behind me. So it hasn't been something that I've done alone or, I can't say that I've bootstrapped myself to any sort of success, anything like that. But one thing that I can say I'm good at is accepting help from those who want to help.
Right.
And that's a big part of it right there.
Right. So
first of all, before we go any further, I got you a shirt.
Oh, appreciate it.
Your Ironrod shirt.
Oh man, no, appreciate it. This is dope. No.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, appreciate it.
I came in my shirt, man. I'm coming right off the front lines.
Yeah.
I just left the shop, sweating and working, doing things, So, but yeah, man, that's for you. And I, again, appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah, no, man, I appreciate you doing this. So let's go back. So let's go back up. Before we go into Ironrod Steel,
yes,
right? Let's go learn a little bit more about yourself. So you're originally from Houston, right?
Yeah, from Houston, from the Southwest side, A-Leaf.
Mm-hmm.
From A-Leaf, Texas. Everybody from A-Leaf, man, we are very proud, still close-knit bunch. We pretty loud. And so shout out to all my SWAT family, my A-Leaf family.
Yeah.
But yeah, from Houston, Texas, man, born and raised.
So, one thing about Houston is it's grown so much over the years.
Definitely.
I'm sure you've seen it, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
You've seen it. It's just not only Houston's so diverse, it's like one of the most diverse cities in the US, but it has just strong in so many areas, right? With healthcare, with different opportunities for just business owners and contractors and builders and so forth. Mm-hmm. So even looking at your business now, so early on, how did you get involved where you are? What was your background back then? Like where you got into a certain trade?
Okay. So as you may know, so I spent 13 years in prison.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to prison when I was 20 years old for aggravated robbery. I did 13 years in prison. Prison is set up, man, to where if you really are focused, you can get something out of them.
Right.
They've got all kind of trades from truck driving to welding to HVAC, plumbing. If you are down there and you're determined to come up out of there a better person and with more knowledge, more skill, you're going to come up out there with, So it just so happened that I landed on a unit where we had welding. We had a welding trade. And I went into prison with no skill, came out with the welding trade, and I jumped straight into it as soon as I got out. I didn't waste any time.
Oh, okay. So up until that point, up until you're 20 years old, you weren't thinking about work.
Wasn't thinking about work, didn't have any skills. I was running the streets.
You were running the streets, gotcha. And then eventually when you went to prison, did you serve your time in Texas?
Yep, served time in Texas and TDCJ.
So going through, how long did it take for you to earn that welding trade?
A couple of years to actually get. So I got an associate's degree in applied science and welding technology, right? But I practiced the welding trade down there for 5, 6, 7 years before I actually got out. I got out looking to go farther in the welding trade. I wanted to be a pipe welder and all of this here and work on the rig rigs or work on a pipeline and stuff like that. But I'm glad it didn't actually turn out to, to work as I imagined it in my head, because I went another route, the route of entrepreneurship, and sometimes I look at the guys who are uh, just welders by trade. It's pretty tough.
Yeah.
It's pretty
I can
tough.
imagine, man. That's not a trade that most people can just go pick up and go do. It probably does take a lot of skill. Safety is probably a big concern too, right?
Yep, safety is a big concern. And I mean, you put in a lot of hours. And the thing is I don't mind putting in hours, but I started putting in hours for myself, right? So I'm real big on being able to, dictate. If I put in so many hours toward this, I want it to benefit me. So I started investing in, my equipment, investing in tools and things like that. And, I started practicing my trade. But as you start to build a business, and pretty much any business you build, you start off as a technician. So you're doing the actual work. But eventually your work becomes more of marketing, more of sales, more of management,
Right.
managing people, managing systems, things like that. So now, I haven't picked up a welding rod or a welding lead in a couple of years,
Yeah.
but I'm still working just as hard on other areas of the business.
Right. So when you got out of prison, you went to go work for someone right away, or did you know you wanted to start your own business?
Yeah, went to work, had a couple of jobs, working overtime. And I was actually welding, and working some other side jobs. And all my extra money, I was just investing little bit by little bit in my own company. So the idea was to just, really it started out just me wanting to make some side money.
So you were doing your own little side projects.
Side projects.
So how were you able to get clients for the side projects versus you had your regular working as a technician?
When you're a one-man show, a lot of the times word of mouth is enough to kind of keep you going.
Uh-huh.
And so I started off basically. So my uncle Mike, he was already into contract and doing remodels and things like that. He had some clients. Whenever I let him know what I was doing, I was going to get into the welding, making burglar bars, doing, miscellaneous welding repairs and things like that. My very first job was through him. It was a lady who owned or was a manager, a property manager over some townhouses, and they needed a bunch of burglar bars replaced. Mm-hmm. So that was the first job I did. And from there, just word of mouth kind of just, kept me going from that point. So that little word of mouth was enough to keep me busy on the weekends.
Yeah.
While I maintained my 8 to 5 Monday through Friday job.
Right.
During the week for my steady paycheck.
Yeah.
So my weekend money was just a little something extra for me to continue to invest into myself.
Right. Right. And so at what point did you say, okay, I'm ready to leave the 8 to 5 and kind of do my own thing?
Yeah. So what happens, man, I think for a lot of people is that, I always encourage people to don't just jump straight into, entrepreneurship or business ownership or just trying to do their own thing. You got to have some kind of stability, right? So do something on the weekends, practice your trade on the weekends. And, and so I kept doing that, right? And then eventually what happens is that your side jobs start to conflict with your 9 to 5.
Right.
So I noticed myself, I'm at work and, I'm sliding off to the back to answer the phone for one of my own customers.
Yeah. Right.
And, started having customers who were wanting me to come by and do jobs that I couldn't do because I was at work.
Yeah.
And so once that started to happen, so often, and then at the same time, I had saved up a decent amount of cash, a nice savings to where I felt like, hey, if, all else fails, I'm still able to carry myself for so many months. I wasn't going to just jump out there without any kind of financial padding. Right. So that's kind of a no-brainer. But then eventually I just, like I said, I had jobs lined up, had some savings, steadily, phone steadily ringing. And I reached out to my boss one morning. It was Ernest. I said, Ernest, man, I say, I think it because everybody at the job knew I was doing my little side hustle.
Yeah,
And
right.
they were all proud of me.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Only black dude working at that job, right? Everybody else was Hispanic.
Yeah.
I'm the only black. And at that time, I was just a welder helper. I wasn't even a welder.
Okay. What's the difference between a welder and a welder helper?
Okay, so in a company like I was working at, where they did pretty critical welding, like the pipe welding and stuff like that, that's going to be X-rayed.
Right.
It's going to be pressure tested or chemical tested. You've got to pass certain weld tests and get certain certifications to weld on that stuff.
Gotcha.
Not every welder is that kind of welder.
Yeah.
Right. That's like what you would consider a professional welder. Those guys make a lot of money.
Right.
Most welders are guys who, they've gotten out of school. They can, run a good bead. They can weld some metal together. But when it comes to that real critical stuff, man, a lot of people's lives can be in danger because, you got high pressure gases and fluids running through that pipe. So it's very critical.
Yeah.
As a welder helper, I was just grinding welds, what we call beveling pipe.
Yeah.
Was cleaning up around the shop. I was out there cutting the yard.
Right. Yeah.
Operating some of the equipment there, but I wasn't doing any welding. I was practicing welding so that I could go and take my welding tests and get certified on some of that stuff. But I was more focused on building a business than I was on becoming a great welder.
Yeah. Right.
Because I read all kind of business. I love business, right?
Right. Yeah.
Entrepreneurship like yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, that's where my energy was more focused on, what can I do to get out here and sort of create my own future than becoming a career welder.
Yeah.
Which I commend those guys, those guys on the front lines, they working hard.
It's a tough job.
It's a tough job. And they're making a lot. And those dudes is making a lot of money. They're making more money than most entrepreneurs. But that just wasn't my path.
So you get your certification, right? Once you already have your certification.
So some basic certifications.
You have a basic level certification. I'm sure there's different tiers, right?
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, basic level. You're doing welding on the side, right? You're doing a few projects here and there. I'm assuming, what would most of these projects coming from residential customers?
Yeah, residential customers. It's what you consider, or what we consider, ornamental ironwork, right?
Uh-huh.
So just basic structural stuff, fences, gates, railings, where, the welding has to be good. The fabrication has to be good. The finishing has to be good, but it's not going to be tested.
Yeah.
There's no, like I mentioned before, high pressure, gases and fluids and stuff running through this stuff, right?
Right.
So it's more of a welding where kind of, I don't want to say anybody can do it, but anybody with a basic level of basic welding skill, you can do it.
You can do it. And it's something you can put. Okay.
Yeah. And at that point, it's more of a focus on marketing, selling. Don't get me wrong, it's a lot of skill required too. You got a lot of guys that are they've been in fencing and metal building construction for years, and these guys are artists. I'm talking about it's something in Spanish they call forja. They create where these scrolls, like thick steel bar scrolls, twisted with flame and heated up to where it makes these real intricate, beautiful, patterns that they take, and they build these gates, heavy gates. And, beautiful stuff,
Yeah.
So that's definitely a skill level too. Some people start off just, doing some basic fences and gates, but then you got the guys who've been doing it for a long time, and they're creating some stuff that is, like I said, this is artwork.
Yeah.
I'm more of a production guy. Right.
Right.
In the book, E-Myth Demystified, he talks about how the system is the solution. Right. So I'm real big on systems. Okay. When it comes to that sort of artwork in any trade, whether it's, whether you're a great baker, a great photographer, a great barber, whatever it may be, right? There's an artistry that is, there's that element of artistry that if your business is dependent upon that art, right? Sometimes it can be hard to scale your business. But if your business is based on a system, production, training to where you can get somebody in there, you can teach them a system and they can because we use jigs in our business, right? So we don't do custom gates to where somebody can take this picture, say, hey, I like this gate. It's, has all this intricate stuff. We do offer a menu of gates with additions, designs, modifications, but it's just that menu. Right. So that way I can teach my guys, hey, this is the play right here. This is the menu, kind of like McDonald's. McDonald's, you can't go and order a filet mignon, right? You can choose from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's how I built my business, right? Where you can order this and you can add this addition, that addition, this addition. But that's the extent of our custom work, right? And that's allowed me to be able to teach a system so that I can step back from that system and focus on other areas of the business while my guys take care of building the standard stuff that we build in the shop.
Right. No, that's a very smart way and in a good way to even grow a business. And so even going back to when you first left your job, right? You left your job and you were going full time. You were doing, I'm assuming it was just you, right? At the time.
Yeah.
How long was it just you? And then at what point did you say, okay, I'm assuming there was some challenges along the way, right?
Oh man, definitely. So it was never just me. It was just me, I guess, every day, right? I was the only one that I could depend on to be there every day, clocking it. But I always had somebody helping me out. I always had somebody that I could reach out to say, hey, I got this job. Are you available this weekend to help me knock it out?
Yeah.
And a lot of the guys that I'd done time with, you can imagine these guys had what? That same welding trade.
Oh, right. Everybody got the welding trade.
So
it worked
these
out.
are welders, right?
Yeah.
And man, we have a big community of people who left that same unit that I was at. It's hundreds of us out here.
Man, what's so funny is when I was looking you up, I saw that you all had a sales manager position. And what really impressed me was I was reading the details and it said criminals I want to put criminals to encourage to apply.
Yeah.
And I just thought that, wow, that's so powerful, right? Because my older brother was incarcerated. And so I kind of know what how hard it can be for some people to get jobs, right? And so you were fortunate enough to, obviously start work right out, but some people, it just doesn't work out that way. It doesn't pan out that way. And so I can only imagine the challenges, right, that those criminals, have to overcome to land a good job, right? To find an effective guy. And most importantly, it being a good paying job.
Definitely. It's hard for everybody right now, right?
Yeah.
So you could imagine somebody that has, that X on their back, how challenging it can be.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I always wanted to do is to offer opportunities to, people who went through situations like I went through, right? Who came up out of that, became a different person through that experience and ready to get out of here and, chase success.
Yeah. Right.
And so I had a lot of brothers, who had gotten out and were welders, and I'd call on these guys, and sometimes I'd have a crew of, 5 felons on a job site. We out there welding, cutting, grinding, getting it in, painting, and knocking stuff out, and I look back on those pictures sometimes, man. It's real cool to look back and see how we were able to come together in those times and just accomplish stuff. Like you said, it was a lot of challenges, a lot of challenges. Some of the guys I hired, I've gone through situations where, at one time I had my whole truck stolen. I go in a Home Depot to go pick up material for a job, one morning. I go inside, I'm in there for about 20 minutes, picking up some supplies, and I come out and I'm looking for my truck. And I'm like, man, I know I parked my truck right there.
It's tough.
And
they were riding with you?
So this wasn't one of the, I've had that kind of situation too, but this was just a situation where, one of the guys hanging out in Home Depot, I mean, they were scouting the place.
Yeah.
And scouting trucks like mine. At that time, I had an older Ram, and they were easy to, to fire up, break into and fire up. And they were probably just watching me. As soon as I parked and, got up out of there and locked the door, they got in, they busted it, they cranked it up and took off. Wow. I had a welding machine on the back of that sucker that I had spent $4,000 on. I had, $3,000, $4,000 in tool, little inverter weld, and a bunch of tools inside the truck.
Wow.
And I was literally standing there left with nothing, walking down the parking lot to go find the officer to report the situation to. And I really just, I didn't know what to think at that time, but I had to start all over.
Wow. I can imagine how discouraging that was at that time.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, that's the things that every, entrepreneur goes through, right? And then I've had brothers that I've hired who have stolen from me, even at the at the shop that I'm in now. One of my good friends, I made him my shop supervisor, and he literally stole thousands of dollars from me.
Wow.
So, you go through things like that.
Yeah.
But you got to have that grit, and you got to keep going, and that's what's going to separate those who really want it from those who don't, because everybody's going to go through something, right?
Yeah.
But eventually it got to the point where, right now, man, we've got a great staff. I've got a great supervisor, a very humble guy named Alberto.
Yeah.
In a team that, I had to work real hard to build the team that I have right now. At one point I had a team where I'm talking about, I was turning grayer and grayer about a minute. My phone blowing up every hour about arguments that they were having at the shop, and egos, and he said, she said, and, this person is like I was running a daycare.
Yeah. No, I can understand that.
Yeah.
And so even in those early days, right, you going through different employees, right, working on various jobs. I know one aspect of your business is you all actually wholesale gates. So how did you, I'm assuming you're just doing welding jobs, right? But at one point, did you have an office, right? Did you go get an office yet? Or what point did you start saying, okay, I got a little bit of cash now. Can I go get an office? Can I go get a desk, computer? Can I step away, right? Can I start really running the business from that aspect?
Man, that's kind of hard, right? Because it's been such a process, right? And that transition that you talk about, it's been such a long transition. And sometimes you go into a certain role, and then you've got to actually fall back into that role that you left, because things aren't necessarily, it's not a linear sort of path, right? It's up and down. So sometimes you may say, oh, I'm not going to be doing any welding anymore. And then 6 months later, you find yourself under the hood welding, right?
Yeah.
So at one point I got in a house and I had a shop in the back, and that's where I was doing all the welding and installing fences and gates, because I got to the point where we were a fence and gate installation company.
And now at this point, how you all still word of mouth?
No, definitely not. So we don't do any installation now.
Okay.
We've completely, we are a supplier. So it started out by us we started selling just scrap steel. So we were doing, fences and gates, installing, and we'd be on the road all the time. Then eventually had a little bit of extra cash. So I'm like, man, what can I do with this, extra cash? Coming how we, growing up where we grew up, we've always been salespeople, right? From being young and, going to the store, buying candy and going to school and selling, candy and stuff like
sharing,
that,
yeah.
in middle school to, in our teenage years and adult years, selling illegal stuff, right?
Right,
We've
right.
always known how to hustle and how to flip a dollar.
Right.
And, that's how I was thinking, what can I do to kind of flip some of this money that I've got?
Yeah.
I'm real big on living frugally, real big on investing in self. So I go to the steel supply, just kind of take a risk and buy some scrap steel, right?
Yeah.
I post that stuff on Facebook Marketplace, on OfferUp, on these different marketplaces, right? And man, people started coming to my little backyard shop and buying that stuff from me, right? It got to the point where I was selling so much of this scrap material that one, I couldn't leave anymore to go do jobs on it because people were coming to the shop to
just to buy
stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then I started, instead of just buying scrap material, I started buying prime material so that I could always have steel.
So what is prime material?
Prime means that it's new.
It's new. Okay.
So this isn't something that's on the scrap yard or something that's been rusted or, when it's surplus or so using the scrap is sort of a misnomer. It's surplus material is what I was selling. For some reason it's on the outside yard, it's rusted, maybe some pieces are twisted, short pieces, stuff like that. Prime material that's how it comes from the steel mill.
Yeah.
New material, full lengths. So I started buying prime material because it got to the point where I needed to have this at all times. I couldn't just go to the surplus yard and cherry pick. It's like, nah, I need to have this stuff. So started paying higher prices and still being able to flip some of this stuff.
Yeah. And it's all out of your backyard.
This is all out of my backyard,
at your
man.
house.
And it was crazy. It was crazy because I'm talking about, I had the metro stop was right outside.
You have a family at this time, or
no? At this time, I just, no family.
Oh, okay.
No family. It was just me. I'd had a little girlfriend at the time, but it was just me and a couple helpers from time to time back there helping me load, material up and stuff like that. And it was crazy because like I said, at sometimes we'd pull up to the shop, we'd go to grab something, me and one of the guys that was helping me, and it'd be 3-4 trucks just lined up, outside of my house waiting for us to open up the gate so that they could load up on steel.
So your shop was your house? The
shop was in my backyard.
The shop was in your backyard?
Yeah, and I wish I had pictures, man. I'm talking about I literally got to the point where I put a forklift back there in my backyard, man. We got some cement thrown down like we were taking risks. I took a few $1,000s, man, and this area that was grass, it was just ground. I got it cemented so that we could stock more material over there in the corner.
Wow.
But it's a long story, man. Even that situation was a blessing because at that time, it was my ex-girlfriend. Right now it's my ex-girlfriend. Her mom actually built that shop for me. It was a little metal building.
Yeah.
She built it for me in that backyard. That's a long story. But without her, if she wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Wow.
So there's been a lot of blessings, a lot of things that have happened along the way that if they wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't be. We wouldn't have Ironrod wouldn't be what it is today.
Right.
So and even from there, man, the growth path, because I never really planned on us having the exact business model that we have today. It just sort of evolved into that. By just sticking to the script though. That's why I tell everybody, man, a lot of times you want to look for that thing that's like, oh man, what do I really, really want to do? They say, oh, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. And that's true. And that's all good, right? But sometimes it's good to take what's given to you, right? What's that thing that's nearest to you that just by proximity, you can get into, right? And focus on that thing and dedicate yourself to that thing, to the exclusion of everything else, and just see how far you get in that, become, just entrenched in that thing. It may not be the most glamorous or the most sexy or the most, disruptive, technology or industry.
Right.
But a lot of the times it's not those industries that make people rich. Sometimes, like in The Millionaire Next Door, a lot of the most wealthy people in the world are people that own tow truck companies, freight companies. Some of these, even lawn care and landscape.
So that's funny. I mean, I could tell you more about it later, but I mean, my next business is specifically focused on home services businesses.
Yeah.
And there's a huge opportunity that a lot of people aren't aware of that exists in the home service industry.
Okay.
Just with the great retirement and the great resignation happening over the next decade that we identified. And there's a huge opportunity to take some of those businesses to the next level. And that's my next business.
Definitely.
So
definitely. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
And so as you continue to buy the prime material, right? Eventually, when did it become Gates? Or because I've seen the videos, man. This is like some big stuff you handle. At what point does it get bigger?
Right.
And bigger?
So even there, what we started doing is we started building fence panels, right? And just basically set up a jig so that we can make these fence panels.
So this is your idea to say we're going to make fence panels. We're going to not pivot, but you say, I think it'd be a good idea to make fence panels for people.
Okay, so in all actuality, so I'd already become a believer in making products,
right?
Versus being in the service industry, right?
Right.
The service industry can be rough, right? Especially in an industry like fencing, construction, because now don't get me wrong, you got some people who build multi-million, billion-dollar, service companies, right? But it's tough. You got to have a stiff team, super stiff team. With a product business, it's a little bit easier to scale because it lends itself a little bit more to systematization, right? Where you can produce something, you can have a template. We started off making simple stuff like pipe stakes. Pipe stakes are the deals that the flatbed trucks have to ride with to keep the pipe from rolling off of the flatbeds. They have to have pipe stakes in order to get loaded at the pipe yard. At one point, somebody asked me to make some of those. I saw the profit that it was in making them. So I said, shoot, how easy, quick. I made this look couple $100.
Yeah.
Why don't I make a bunch of these and just market them, right? And that was just by chance. That was just by serendipity that happened. Same thing happened with some forklift extensions. I had a customer reach out to me because they saw I just did welding. So hey, could you make this? I researched. I saw how much they were selling the forklift extensions for. I saw how much I could buy the material for, how fast I said, man, I just made $300-400 in a few hours. Why don't I start making more of these and start marketing them, right? And that allowed me to basically, in a sense, I started having stock, right?
Yeah.
And I was able to kind of just market this stuff to, again, these little social media marketplaces. And people would just come by and buy either they were buying steel, they were buying pipe stakes, they were buying forklift extensions, so they were buying loading rams, just certain things that all of these things, I just made them the same. No, like, these custom rams, this custom this. No, everything is the same. Just marketing, and eventually it was another competitor of mine who made fence panels. So I said, well, I can make those too, right? There's always room in industries for, even if I'm just getting the crumbs, right? I'll take those crumbs. And so I started making the fence panels. At that time, the location wasn't big enough for us to make the gates, right? And so what's crazy is I had some counterparts of mine who offered me to share a space with them. At that time, we were already growing out of this. Bro, I had, this is just my backyard. I had racks, and I'll show you the pictures. I had steel racks that me and my buddies had built back there.
Yeah.
I used to back my trailer in, block the whole street. Sometimes I'd have cars, 10, 15 cars, like stop because I'm backing in a trailer, like loaded down with steel, using a forklift, unloaded, putting it on the rack. We had that backyard just packed down with steel. So it was time for us to get up out of there.
Yeah.
Right. So I had some counterparts of mine who had offered us to share space with them. And so we did. And we moved everything over there with them because they had a bigger location. And but man, that actually went bad pretty fast. Right. That's a whole story. It went sour.
So they were in the same business as you were. They just had
they were in a similar business. So they were a gate operator company, right? And so they weren't used. It wasn't a storefront, right? So they weren't used to people pulling up, customers getting loaded up, sort of, not tearing up the yard, but just, there's going to be some. You're going to see the effects if you got traffic going in. They weren't used to that, And at the same time, I think that there was a little bit of jealousy, right? Because they saw our business continue to grow and people continue to come there. People would come in. There was an office there and people all of a sudden are showing up to this office and asking for us. And it was a lot of different factors. And then, the wife one time went up in there and just cussed out my guys just for no reason. It was crazy. So eventually it was just like, you know what, we've got to end this. They agreed to it. I'm like, look, we got to get up out of here. Let's just break this lease. And that was a sort of an agreement on both of our parts. Hey, let's just do away with this. Now that was a real scary point for me, right? Because you can imagine I couldn't go back to where I came from. Right. So what do I do? At that point, right? I got to get up out of here. I can't go back to where I came from. I've never dealt with trying to find a commercial lease somewhere for a business. So I'm in a space. So I reached out to one of my mentors, right? One of my very first business mentor, Howard Rambin of Moody Rambin. He actually found me in prison. Howard Rambin, the owner of Moody Rambin. At that time, Moody Rambin Interest, it's the largest privately owned commercial real estate firm in Houston, right? This dude is big time. I met him while I was in prison. I had written a bunch of letters to a bunch of, different places throughout the city to just try to find somebody who would sort of really be a sponsor. I wrote to a bunch of AAs looking for a sponsor. Well, Mr. Rambin had dealt with alcoholism in his past, so he still attends AAs. He's like an AA sponsor to people. He mentors people in business. He's a business coach, does a lot of giving back. So out of all these letters I wrote, he's the only person, man, who actually wrote back to me and was with me in prison, sending me books, writing me every week, sending me letters, like giving me different teachings on like SMART goals and all types of stuff. I'm talking about he was just like an angel for me in that place. And he stuck with me through 2 set-offs. So in prison, you come with an aggravated case. I had a 20-year sentence, so I didn't have an opportunity for parole until 10 years. Wow. Got to do half. When I came up at that 10 years, they set me off. No. Had to wait another year. Came up again. No. Wow. And he was with me through all of that. The third time I came up, I got moved to a unit where your family could actually attend the parole board hearing, right? Yeah. And family and friends. And guess what? Guess who was there at the parole board hearing? He was. Howard Rambin went himself in the flesh to my parole board hearing. Wow. Told the commissioner, hey, I got him. The commissioner was like, my mama, my grandma were there. The lawyer, my paroler was there. But like, how did he meet you? And was real interested in Mr. Rambin and the dynamic of our relationship, how we met each other. And he basically told her, look, I got him. Yeah. You ain't got to worry about him. I got him. Yeah. And sure enough, guess what? I made that parole, man. I made that parole, man. So, so it's great. It's sure enough, as soon as I got out, he was there. So the whole time he's been by my side. I go meet him. He's, kicking my butt, let me see the financials in the business. He wants to see the financials. He wants to see the income statement. He wants to see the balance sheet. He wants to understand how the inner workings of the business, like what you're doing. Are you making money, or is it, And at that time, guess who I had to reach out to?
You had to reach out to him.
I had to reach out to him, and he helped me find a place. Now the place that I found is the place that I'm in now.
Wow.
They were talking about how much it was a month. I'm like, man, I'm looking at my buddy who, Trevor Matlock, who had, was solid with me and helped me. He was that person that allowed me to sort of focus on some other things in the business while he sort of ran. He's not with me today. He moved on to some other things. And right now he's actually running a similar business to, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Smart dude, man. It's a really smart guy. And I wish him, all the success in the world. But I got with Trevor and I was like, man, what you think, man? It's a lot of money, man. A month, like $4,000 a month,
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, well, we got to do it, So we went for it,
Right.
And man, it just turned out to be the best thing that we could have done,
It was a big space.
It's a big space. When we first got in there, it was like 20,000 something square feet.
Yeah, huge spot.
Yeah, when we got in there, we were like, hello.
Yeah.
We brought the little steel. We thought we had a bunch of material, right?
Yeah.
We bring it over there and we just looking around like, dang, that's all we got?
Yeah.
It was like, and what's so crazy is that some events happened throughout that first year or so, because in all actuality, we weren't ready to move into that space, but what happened, man, is just crazy. One morning I woke up and I had gotten an email, right? And it was same time as COVID and everything and the PPP loan and all this stuff here. And I got an email about, EIDL loan, And they're like, yeah, apply because I'm registered with the SBE, MB Hub and stuff like that. So you get certain emails that, for these different opportunities and stuff like that. And sure enough, man, they had reached out to me about applying for an EIDL loan, right? And I'm like, I say, man, I don't mess with nothing.
Yeah.
I say, but I might as well just do it just because. Might as well, right? Yeah, might as well. And, I just sent it in real quick, didn't spend too much time or effort on it. And sure enough, man, they came back and it was granted to me,
Wow.
EIDL. It's not the PPP that doesn't have to be paid back because of the payroll. And this is a loan that actually does have to be paid back with very favorable terms. But that catapulted us to a space. That's why I say, man, I can't say. Somebody asking me, oh yeah, how do you do it? And I can tell you some basic things, right? Yeah. That you have to have in order to be successful in business, right? But those things don't guarantee that you're going to make it in business. Now, I can't tell you how to be blessed, I can tell you that I pray, right? And that I do stick to the script. And don't get me wrong, like, it's going to come. If you stick to the script, it's not going to necessarily happen overnight, right?
Yeah.
Our success seems like it really happened overnight.
Yeah.
But that did, man, that catapulted it because, again, I'm real frugal and I'm about assets, right? So, you got a lot of people who got money from the government.
Yeah, the PPP loans and all that stuff. Yeah.
And they take that money and they did whatever they wanted to do with it, right? Man, we handled business, right?
Yeah.
Material, equipment,
Right.
We put it where it was supposed to go. We did what we were supposed to do with it. And it had an effect, and things started growing faster. It still sometimes feels like I'm catching up to the business. Yeah. How fast it's growing. But because of the fact that I have some great mentors who, these guys have years, decades of business experience, under their belt. Right?
Yeah.
They help me navigate some of the tough issues when, you're there and you kind of feel like you're alone and you're facing, a couple situations where it may not necessarily be a correct answer. There's just a one answer that may be better than the other,
Yeah.
People that I can reach out to when I'm stressed and be like, hey, I'm dealing with this. What do you think? They've been there before.
Right.
And I think that they respect the fact that, I heed the advice that I'm given. Now, at the same time, they also respect that I will do my own thing real quick. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, just because that you tell me something, that doesn't mean that I'm a yes man. They will admit that they are even glad that I didn't take some pieces of advice that they gave me, but I took a little bit more risk and did some things that actually turned out to be beneficial for our growth.
Wow.
So yeah, man, we moved into that shop, and now it's to the point where we kind of got to walk through the shop.
Yeah, right.
We packed in there.
Yeah.
We got a bunch of material, and that just has built up over time because we continue to reinvest, into the company, into equipment, into material, into our team, into training, into growing, not just growing as a company, but us growing on a personal level. How are we all developing? What books are we reading? What training are we getting?
Right.
Things like that. All those things are important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So where do you see the business over the next 5 years? What are some of your goals going, over the next couple of years?
Well, really, man, we want to make an impact in the community. Part of what I'm doing with you right now, telling my story.
Yeah.
And we want to allow even our space to be a platform where we can even be able to train life challenged, youth, right? Teaching them how to weld, teaching them how to design, how to draft, things like that.
Yeah.
Helping them, get skills that they wouldn't have, otherwise, because a lot of the times, people aren't interested.
Yeah.
In helping some of these kids to, develop themselves. Seems like a lot of kids are just kind of lost in the system, and unfortunately, too many of Blacks, we don't have a lot of the skill sets that allow people of other races to build and to grow financially, not just themselves, but their families,
Yeah.
You got a lot of, Hispanics today, man. These guys are out there working hard, right? Out there building up the city, taking that money, investing that money into properties, investing that money into capital assets. They're buying trailers. They're buying, front end loaders and dozers and lawnmowers and trucks and properties and, investing this money into themselves and their families and their businesses. We're not doing that enough. We're taking and spending our money on consumer goods while other people are taking and buying capital goods, which, just puts us at a disadvantage economically, right? So that's why I'm real big on capital assets, We gotta invest into stuff that's gonna help us make more money and help us grow and help us have more command over our earning potential, right?
Right.
But we definitely right now we just hit over $2 million in sales, right? Which is incredible.
Yeah, no, it's incredible.
5 years from now, we want to be at $10 million, $20 million in sales. We want to continue to grow. We've got a lot of ideas and a big vision for how we're going to accomplish that. One of the ways that we're doing that is, again, we just hired our first outside salesperson, which is huge. You know, you got marketing, you got sales. Marketing has gotten us to where we are right now, right? But we don't think it's going to take us to where we need to go. And so sales is more proactive. It's
my background sales, so I know what it's like. More like so what marketing before you all was just doing more like social media or
social media, running ads. So once you get to a certain point, and once you have, you know, right now we've got we fluctuate between 7 to 9 employees. Right at that point, it depends on who your customer base is, right? Our customer base, we've got to spend quite a bit of money on ads.
Yeah.
So we spend thousands of dollars a month on running ads on Facebook and stuff like that. And we have to, right? Once you get to a certain point, then a certain percentage of your revenue has to go into marketing and advertising.
Yeah, of course. And then hopefully the outside salesperson will kind of take you all to another level.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And that's the plan, is to develop a really good sales team.
Yeah.
Right. Starting with this guy and just continue to build out that sales department.
Right. So you all are doing residential and commercial projects? Or
we're doing so we sell material to contractors who do residential jobs, commercial jobs, industrial jobs. So some of our customers are homeowners who find us, purchase material from us. So that way they're not incurring the markup that a contractor may charge them. And then they find their own contractor to install the material. Some of them even take a shot at installing themselves. Other customers are contractors, you know, guys who own fence companies, who they can do the stuff that we do. They can build the gates and they can build the fence panels, but we're set up to where we can do this stuff very fast, cheaper, because we buy material in bulk now. So we don't buy locally anymore. Initially, a lot of the material that we were buying, we were just buying from local suppliers. Once we made a certain like wave in the city and certain suppliers that we were buying from started hearing about us a little bit too much, they cut us off completely.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they said no more. No, we can't sell to y'all. Because y'all are interfering now with our business. But luckily, by the time we got cut off by a few of our key vendors, key local vendors, we'd already developed relationships with some steel mills. So now we just purchase straight from the mill. So we have to purchase truckloads of steel. When you purchase from the mill, you can't go buy like a trailer load or a few pieces or a bundle. You got about 48,000 pounds at a time, you know, full truckload. And so now that's who we purchase from. And it started off with us just having one vendor, right? And that's a dangerous position, because when your business depends on you being able to buy and acquire material from these vendors. And when you just have one vendor, you're at a disadvantage. You know? But thankfully, over the past year or so, we've developed relationships with some other mills. So now we've got a few good vendors. And so we have more competitive pricing. We have access to more material. We have a lot more, again, command over, what we're able to stock and the material that we have. So that's been a really, really cool development too that's taken place over the past year or so.
Yeah.
Vendors that initially we would reach out to try to, purchase material from it, and they told us straight up, like, "Nah, we're not taking on any new accounts.
Yeah,
we're not, and now these same vendors email or text me, "Hey, can we set up a meeting to come by?" And because we're already buying from them now, but they just want to come by and continue to build and develop the relationship. Because they value the relationship with us. Now, before, they wouldn't even open up an account for us.
Right. Yeah. No, that is very interesting. It's crazy to see, like, especially as you continue to grow, right, and seeing the people that you used to work with kind of, see you as competition is a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was scary at first.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was flattering.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So it was scary. It was like, oh man, what does that mean? But at the same time, it was like, yeah, that's cool.
Are you you know what? I don't have my phone on me. But are you familiar with this Theodore Roosevelt, the man in the arena?
The man in the arena.
Yeah, it's a quote.
Oh, okay. No, I haven't heard of that quote.
Man, I wish I had my phone on me. I could look it up. Or
Theodore. So what is it? The man in the arena?
Yeah, I just thought about, because your story just reminds me, and I just found this quote today, and I'm just like obsessed with it because it's such a powerful thing. And as we wrap up, I think it's just something that I think a lot of people need to be aware of. It's the man in the arena. If you want to pull it up,
okay.
Do you have it?
It's a certain quote. It is not the critic who counts.
Yeah, that's the whole quote right there.
Okay, cool. It says, it is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat.
Yeah, man.
That's it right there.
Yeah, it's good. I just found that out the other day, and I was like, man.
Yeah. No, that's
This remind me of that, as we wrap up. But like that's just it's a powerful quote. Now that I got that hung up somewhere in my house or something like that, because that's just so powerful, man.
Yeah, yes.
And being able to take something in your situation, right, when people think it's over, right, and I can only imagine the time you spent, right, 13 years going, parole and all that, and being able to have that perseverance to overcome that. It takes a lot, man, and not everyone has that mental toughness, to withhold all that, and then especially stuff that you go through as an entrepreneur, right? Mm-hmm. And so, man, I commend you for what you have built, and wish you luck, as you continue to grow Ironrod. I
appreciate you, man. Yeah, and I thank you, Donnie, again, man, and best wishes on your endeavors, man, on what you're doing. Again, this is a really cool deal you got, man.
I appreciate it.
Very appreciative, brother, and much respect to what you're doing, man. I thank you for giving me an opportunity to be a part of it, because I know you're going places. Yeah. No, appreciate it. Definitely. Yeah. So if everyone wants to, look up Ironrod, where can they find you? Yeah, definitely. So we're on Facebook, which is actually something that's crazy. We just got our Facebook account hacked. So another challenge that we're going through right now, working to get that back, up and operable. Instagram is, the problems that come with entrepreneurship, but definitely, Ironrod Steel on Facebook. As soon as we get this, taken care of, LinkedIn, have been real, active on LinkedIn lately. And if anybody wants to reach out to me, my email is rod@ironrodsteel.com. I'm always open to, talking about business, man. I love discussing business. I'm very, very passionate about it. Problem solving, and just talking about possibilities, right? Because there are so many possibilities. None of us have tapped the surface or reached our highest heights yet. So. Yeah, right. Roger, appreciate it.